And it's also polluting the air and water at every single stage. And so looming over this entire death cycle is this brewing hurricane of climate change, which is reminding us that even if we were to put a cap on each of these smokestacks today, even if we were to stop all point source pollution in the whole world, we would still have about 30 years of climate change coming to us down the pipe. Right? We've already filled our atmosphere with so many gases and so many emissions that that's what's in store for us. So the good news is we're not even talking in this part of the poster about how to stop climate change, because we can't stop it, right? It's already starting to happen. And the people that are feeling those impacts the most are usually the people who have the least to do with generating these emissions in the first place. Like farmers, fishermen, people who rely on the weather and the land for their livelihoods, right? And so climate change affects everybody, but it's not necessarily affecting everybody in the story in the same way. And that's why when we move into this sort of organizing chapter of the poster, we see that everybody who's trying to figure out solutions to this mess that's being created, this really complicated story, is taking leadership from these folks who are the most directly affected. These are the most endangered species in the whole poster, who come from the air, like this bee and this bat, from the water, like this black-side bass and these mussels, and from the land, like the red-cheeked salamander and the wolves. And they've come together to strategize not about the political boundaries that divide them. These are all different species who don't like usually pick it together, right? They're meant to be coming from different kinds of communities. But they're strategizing around the resources that unite them, around the watershed that they all share together, to try to figure out what to do and how to respond. Meanwhile, all of these pollinator characters here who represent community organizing are taking leadership from them. They're sort of putting the ideas that these folks are generating here in the circle into practice. They're doing education about NCR. They're making signs and organizing a protest. They've got a petition for Coalfield citizens' rights, signed for with an animal sign. Go Bob. Come on, that's cute. Come on. And that's really cute. Saying our mountains are not for sale. They're even calling in support from folks from away and saying, just because you don't live underneath the coal-fired power plant or next to a mountaintop removal site or dangerously downwind from a sledge impoundment, we still need you all to support us in our struggle. And we need you to take leadership from us. So here we have a tortoise and a hare who are parachuting in from other places. These are solidarity activists. There are people who are coming with different tools. This one's got a graduation cap on, the kids at college student. She's late for a very important date. She's coming to do some direct action. This one's taking it a little bit more slowly. He's got a video camera to document what's going on in the coal fields. But the key thing is they're both taking leadership from this scene right here, where this monarch butterfly, this local person, has her proboscis in the ear of this hare with the air traffic controller ones, who's helping them figure out where to land in a way where they're going to be genuinely helpful and not kind of dumb college kids who make a big mess. And one really great example of that is this tortoise here who's doing water testing. Some of our friends in Appalachias said, I would give 10 reporters for one biochemist to come help us figure out what the heck is in this water that people are drinking and why they're getting so sick. And so there have been real goals that have been established for people with relative privilege to come in and be genuinely useful here. Further up this poster, the Philippines with 1,000 Arms is doing something called paper wrenching, or death by 1,000 paper cuts. 1,000 Arms is just pouring over all this regulation and legislation. Mountain removal is legal, right? And she's trying to use that apparatus of regulation that exists to fold all of this stuff into paper airplanes that she's chucking at this new clean coal-fired power plant that's zooming in on this wave of money and regulation out of Washington and Wall Street. Right? You can tell it's clean because it has these script bubbles. And a lot of these, these paper airplanes she's got, they're not actually hitting their mark, right? This thing's also a paper shredder that's throwing itself a ticker tape parade with all of her wasted efforts. But every once in a while, one of her gearing requests jams in those gears and it slows down the machine and it buys some time for these urban activists on the ground who are saying no to this power plant coming into their community. And you know that this isn't just a story of how coal affects rural people, it's also a story of how it affects people in cities. And these are urban characters, the poodle, the cockroach, the squirrel, the cat. And they're saying, clean coal is a dirty lie. As long as coal comes out of the ground like this, it gets burned like that, and it generates waste like this, it can't possibly be clean. And they're calling for community power as an alternative to power that's sort of the same old story as usual. Way up at the top there are these mock characters who are shining a light on who some of the real bad guys are in this story. a lot of the time when we talk about our own consumption patterns being a big part of the puzzle, we all use electricity. We're using a computer and a projector right now. We get a lot of drove to get here today. It's easy to feel really guilty about the way that we're participating in the story. But it's also really important to call out some of the people who are really making big profits off of people suffering. So one of those folks is Wall Street. So these moms are shining a light on Bank of America, Citigroup, some of these big banks that have been financing mountaintop removal operations for years, and encouraging folks like us to close our bank accounts for banks that fund this stuff. Not all of us have an MCR site in our community that we can go protest at, but most of us have banks, right? So this is a reference to a campaign by a group called the Rainforest Action Network, which has been very successful in getting big banks to stop funding mountaintop removal.
So that's looking at how people are fighting back. And the other kind of last part of this poster is looking at what people are trying to do to create alternatives. The yeses of what are people trying to create instead. And a lot of times folks ask us, like, okay, Beehive Collective, you told us a lot of bad news, like, what's the answer? And we always have to be like, well, we don't actually have the answer. We think that there's a lot of different answers. And anyone who tells me they have the answer, I'm going to be very suspicious of them. People are doing, we see some of those things being enacted. Like we met this really awesome grandma in Tennessee who talked to us about the importance of knowledge transfer between generations. So here's a scene of all these salamander women who are engaged in transferring knowledge to each other. There's one grandma who's teaching this mother-to-be about all the plants that live in her backyard that she can use for how to be a healthy pregnancy.
That's great.
There's another elder salamander teaching this teenager about what they need to do to clean up their water. This isn't the future. Remember, this is the present day. We have dirty water tanks. What do we do to take care of our water? So they're replanting a bioremediation filter. Here's a mama who's washing her baby with water. Washing babies, not washing coal. What her idea of babies with water. And then kind of at the center of it is mama who's like weaving all of her family together with this breed match. She's kind of binding her generation of her family together with her knowledge that she's passed down. And as we move up through the rest of the poster, you can see different things people are doing. Like right now, folks are actively trying to engage in land reclamation, like real reclamation processes. We don't have topsoil on this mindset anymore. How are we going to make this a productive part of our ecosystem again? So they're composting and rebuilding terrace gardens and all sorts of things to make the land productive. Here we have a scene of dismantling and rebuilding. We have this bird that's ripping up the national power grid. Not saying that people shouldn't have electricity, but just contrasting ways that we could do it. The national power grid, by the time electricity makes it to this light bulb from the generating station, it lost like 2/3 of the renewable energy. So there's gotta be better ways of producing and consuming electricity in our communities. And then the birds that are ripping up the fence are referencing a group in Tennessee that had decided that through this story, private property kind of screwed them over a little bit. That's what allowed the companies to come in and take all this land. So it's a group of mountain folks, not weirdo hippies, who decided to own their community in common. Again, like they make their decisions about what happens to the resources in their town together as a community. So there's all sorts of different stories of healing that are happening. There's healing of the water, there's healing of the lands, there's people who are trying to reinvent the economies. And then one of the biggest stories that we have kind of continued in chapter 5 is the historical healing of things that happened too. This is looking at an event that happened while we were in Tennessee called the Longest Walk. The Native Americans walked from California all the way to Washington, D.C. trying to raise awareness of these issues. So when we go all the way back to what happened to this land in the first place, we see that story kind of coming full circle and these folks being welcomed home to their land. And being just an acknowledgement of the historical history that happens part of the region.
All of the stories in this part of the poster are talking about a different way of thinking about energy. So we talked about a sort of linear extractive system. All of these themes are talking about using the cycles and how energy actually moves in the world. And we're talking about generating energy with the power of our bodies and our communities, rather than extracting energy out of somebody else's spectrum. One story that we want to leave you with before we show you a magic trick is this one here, the story of the Easter Hemlock tree. The hemlock that I was going to point to right over there not looking so hot. It's got these kind of cotton balls looking things on it. That's a disease called the woody adelgid that's plaguing the eastern hemlock tree right now. And when we see our second hemlock tree, the future present section of the poster, we can see that the hemlock is dead. And that's because it's looking like this is what's going to happen to the hemlock. There's tons of biologists and arborists and folks from all over this region who are working on that clock to try to figure out how to fight this tree disease, but they can't figure out what to do. And it's looking like this tree is going to go extinct, just like a lot of the other trees in the early part of the poster that we learned just now. And so it's a sad story, and it's not exactly a hopeful story, but there's a detail here on the bottom of the trunk where there's a wasp who's harvesting a mushroom off of the trunk of this tree. And what she's harvesting is something called the hemlock reishi, which is a mushroom that only grows on dead hemlock trees. So while you have all these hemlocks dying off all over these mountains, you have this huge proliferation of this particular kind of mushroom. And the cool thing about hemlock reishi is that they're actually really powerful medicinal. They're a really powerful medicinal fungus that's used to treat liver toxicity and heavy metal poisoning. And surprisingly, that's exactly the kind of medicine that so many of the people who live in this part of the world are really needing the most right now, as they're being super poisoned by this toxins. So we don't include this story to say, oh, don't worry about it, Mother Nature's got it. We can just, keep going on business as usual. Obviously, that's not our point. We need to organize it. We need to figure out really real solutions that come from our own communities for how to deal with this stuff. But I find this to be a hopeful story because it kind of lets us know that we're not alone in doing that. There's a lot of years of history on our side. And the last thing I want we do that there is an intact mountain right here. And we're sort of looking up it from the hollow that's sort of the valley between the two parts of the mountain. This intact watershed is the stitch tracks together. And we do this for a couple of reasons, but the primary one is that we know that a lot of our friends who live in Appalachia, when they look out their windows in their backyard, it looks like this, right? It looks like this sort of devastated landscape and all this bad news. And we know that that's sort of an overwhelming picture to put on your wall, if that's your story. We know we're also kind of space hogs. And so by creating a sort of good news version of the story, it's a way for us to, not forget that the bad news is there, but also actively participate in envisioning what we would like to see instead in the future that we're trying to build towards. That's what we brought to share with you all today. Thank you so much.